Blog Talk Radio. Welcome to Illuminations Radio, here to inspire you to go deep, deeper into your roots, to go back into your true self. As you seek within, you will discover real health, joy, and wealth. As you travel through space-time of your own heart-mind, you will come to recognize you, and only you as master, knowing that deep within your soul lies every attained goal. Yes, everything you've been after. Greetings, this is Tamara Westwood, your host. We all know what the problems are, but here at Illuminations Radio, together we seek solutions in every aspect of life, from health and spirituality to relationships and finance, and everything in between, with a variety of guests who are making a difference and shining examples in our collective adventure called life. Recording live on Blog Talk Radio from Seattle, Washington. But wherever you are in the world, join us live by logging into blogtalkradio.com/illumination. Join the chat room or call 347-838-9577 to join in the conversation, ask a question, or just say hello. Or listen 24/7 by subscribing to the free podcast at the iTunes Store. Search iTunes Podcasts for Illuminations, healthy food for the mind, body, and soul. Welcome once again. I'm so glad you could join us here on Illuminations Radio. I'm so grateful for our listeners. I see the chat room is filling up. The switchboard is filling up, and we're really excited about a special guest tonight. We always get excited when Dr. Delbert Blair is joining us. And tonight, he's going to bring us current to all of these unusual things happening on the planet, things that are happening off planet even. But, you know, we definitely want to sit back. We want to get comfortable. We want to get our notepads, because this griot has a lot of information that we all really need to form our minds around so that we can wake up and become aware of what's going on around us. And when we're aware, we can make really fine decisions that can support ourselves and everybody around us. So without further ado, I just want to hurry up and bring our guest on because, you know, we always run out of time when we're talking to Delbert Blair because he's got so much to share, and I want to come current. I know you do too. So here we are, going to welcome him on, and I don't think he needs any further introduction. He's been on the show. If you're not familiar, I wonder where you've been hiding. But if you need to find out more about him, you can go in the archives of Illuminations Radio as well as the Solutions Radio. You can check out the Solutions Radio YouTube channel. There are lots of good interviews with him there as well. But this is our guest, and we just love Dr. Delbert Blair. Welcome back to Illuminations, Doctor.
Yes, and how are you doing today? And I should say, how are you doing this evening? And it's my pleasure to speak with you once more and also to be one of the guests on Illuminations. I'm looking forward to it as much as you are. I hope some of your guests will not turn me off, but turn me on.
Oh, yes. Well, you know, you're going to turn us all on, you know. And I love the fact that you respect all of us to know that we do have that inner light that's there. And so you take the time to share your wisdom. I mean, you have a great deal of metaphysical knowledge, insight, things that you pick up on. I mean, you've been bringing information to everybody for a very long time, and a lot of things that you've been sharing have come to pass. And we know that this time that we're living in is that time where many things are starting to surface, things that have been hidden, and you use that great insight. And it says a lot that you want to bring it to us. And so it says a lot about us as well, the fact that you know that we can get it.
Again, I don't have any choice but to bring it because I dedicated for a long time now to the study of metaphysics. And in fact, when I started out talking about metaphysics, most people didn't even know what I was talking about. And I got turned off immediately because what is this foolishness? What is this voodoo and stuff? Then later on, they couldn't get enough of metaphysics, but then I got relegated because I'd been at it so long that I couldn't be current. So what I'm saying now, not only am I current, and anybody into metaphysical studies now is getting blessed because simply the energy streaming from our sun, and I'll start with that one, as you said, off planet, these coronal mass ejections, and there's one now that was released, is supposed to hit here in the next 24 to 48 hours. Usually doesn't take but about 3 days that they say, I guess, to cover themselves. They say 24 to 48 hours. Now, coronal mass ejection means that there's been a sun flare. There's been a release from the sun of tremendous amounts of energy. And as everyone knows, and we've been told by our astronomers and astrophysicists and meteorologists again, that one of those flares, if it ever hit us head on, we'd be gone. In fact, in the 1900s, they would say that once that happened, not only would we be gone, but our planet would be gone. Well, they've had to revise their meteorological scale on what sun flares can do, because what used to be what was called an X-class flare, which meant that they couldn't even tell you what it was. If that ever hit, we'd be gone. Now they reversed the scale, and what used to be .90, the X-class flares, is now the beginning. So we're now able to take things that supposedly we couldn't back in the 1900s, and we're going to be tested because the one that's being released is put it like this, it's very strong. Now, that means that we probably will be getting brownouts or a lot of loss, collapse of electrical power over the next 3 days if this does happen. And again, if it gets balanced, it won't happen. Now, how can you say, well, how can it get balanced? As I state, we've been getting now energy streaming from our sun that the ancients said would kill us, the modern scientists said would desecrate our planet. We're still living with it. And this is because, and this is where I want to start getting metaphysical, it's not what they think it is. It's energy that our planet has asked for. It's energy that our planet needs to go into higher gear. She wants to go into superdrive. She wants to graduate from kindergarten to grad school. And it takes that kind of power to ignite, incite, and elicit from our planet its reason to go up. As little mitochondria, and that's what I refer to as on this beautiful cell that's called a planet, we've got to now also use that energy. So for those who are going to go out and get drunk and going to get high, for those who are on drugs of all kinds, prescription and otherwise, it's going to be quite a time because their body's reactions are going to be slowed down by these things because they're not using natural hormones, they're using artificial stimulations. And therein comes the problem. Because as our planet tries to rise up, we are bad little mitochondria because we're not rising up with her, and a part of the cell that we occupy is therefore going to be low in grade. That's why people must raise their consciousness. That's why people need to get into meditation. That's why people need to eat, drink, and think what is good, because now you're helping this cell to not become cancerous and kick you off, but become an illuminated one going into higher consciousness. I know I said a lot, but I wanted to tie in one aspect because all things are tied together once you understand truth or understand what the beginning is. And my beginning is that I believe in the universal creator. I believe we're created through, and therefore what the universal creator is bringing to us, we must need. The thing is, can we use what we must need, or must we discard it because we're so low in vibration and ignorance that we won't accept it?
Excellent. Well, that speak there, about the universal creator. You didn't say God. You said universal creator. And you spoke about our ability to raise our consciousness so that we can elevate our vibration to that creator. And, here we are. We're on this planet, and we're what the planet's doing, right? We're part of it. We're one and all. And so something that tends to separate us from that, and this is my own thinking. I just want you to, kind of help me out with this, but that many people are caught up in giving their power away to things that they call God. Can you go into that a little bit?
Well, I like to use the term universal prime creator when I'm really singling out the creator of all things. I don't think that God made me, but if God is the consciousness or cosmos or universal power to some people, then God's a good word. I don't look at it because God, I think I'm a God. Now, I think I'm a God or have a God potential because a God is one, I think, who is more or less a product of the universal creator's mind, but when we become God-like, there's some things you should not want to do. When you become away from that, then we're always looking inside. No, I'm sorry. We're looking outside for some God to help us when we should be helping ourselves because we have souls. And the soul, yes, where did the soul come from? It came from the universal prime creator. So we like to go around in redundancy, but it's not that way. If you have a soul, you're already a part of the universal creator. And so I say prime creator, meaning the highest thought I can throw out there to the cosmos, that's who I'm now talking to. We can act God-like here, and we can act dog-like here. Some dogs are better than gods because you spell the word backwards, and this is what? Some people have less compassion and understanding in spirit than a dog. Has more compassion and understanding, will give his or her life for you. There are some people out here that take your life, try to get a bag of reefer. So, as I say, it really depends on where your consciousness is, and our consciousnesses are going to be tested, believe me. And if you can't see that, look at all the things that are happening. Legionnaire's disease, west of the Nile, I don't know whatever happened to east of the Nile, but west of the Nile disease, you got the common flu, you got zombie bees, you've got all kind of Legionnaire's disease. Every time you turn around now, there's a shot they want to give you to stop some disease. Well, where in the heck did all of these diseases come from? And what are the shots going to do if you don't know the source? If you know the source, you don't need the shot because you get rid of the source. So I'm going to say again, we get so many lies that some people now live off the lies and think it's the truth, and that's dangerous too. That's why I'm glad shows like that.
Yes, and I was just agreeing with you that that we're caught up in misconceptions, and so that energy is being dispersed where it's not going to benefit us. So if we start to look at it and uncover those lies, which is what you do best, Dr. Blair, then we can laser our energy where it's going to benefit us. And so, if we take a look at, some of the things that we're doing, that are not godlike, that are keeping us in a lower vibration, how can we step away from that? Then when we're in a lower vibration, certainly we're prey or privy to whatever these people are or these beings are, the Dracons, as you speak of them, that want to keep us at this lower vibration.
Well, you used two P's. You said prey or privy. If you're prey, I don't want to be anybody's prey unless I'm doing the praying. And if you spell the prey P-R-E-Y, I definitely don't want to be that to anyone, even though sometimes I may have been in my lifetime because of these Dracons. Now, if you say privy, this means, again, that you're getting something maybe special and you're privileged. That's what the short connotation is, a privilege of getting something more. That's why I'm in metaphysics. That's why I study for truth. That's why when I listen to 2579 in the Fox, I begin to take that with a grain of salt, because the grain of salt is part of a heavier grain, and I know if they gave it to me, it must be the bottom of the grain, because this is why the Illuminati come in. What's the Illuminati? Because it serves the Dracon. What's the Dracon? Those that eat you up. Literally, figuratively, mentally, and spiritually. So this is why decisions that we make now are going to have a great bearing on everything we do. Our spirit, our mind, our soul, and our body. And I like to say that the spirit, the mind is to the spirit as the brain is to the body. What we think internally, we do externally. And what we do externally is what helps us on the physical plane. So if you're going out taking these shots, if you're going out taking these doping drugs, if you're going out doing all the lowest things you can think of, this is what your body and your mind are concentrated on, and that's what you're going to get. So if our planet is going to higher gear with corona mass ejected from the sun, I don't think I want to be down there in the mire because I'll get swept up as mud. I'd rather be trying to ascend with it. That's why if you want to go forth now, you got to expand consciousness. You've got to We are what you think, drink, and eat. And that means, again, you are products of your own consciousness. The Creator has nothing to do with that. The Creator gave you birth and gave you life. What you do with your birth and life is where we're going to get caught up in. And this is why there's so many things happening. As I say, we could go all over the place, but we'll take it again as you want to lead, or if there are any callers, how they want to lead.
We do. We have a caller that has been kind enough to hang on. They actually got the first seat they've been holding for quite a while, and I think I'll go ahead and invite them on to ask a question or comment here. And so caller in the 757 area code, last digit of your number is number 3. I'm going to bring you on the air now to speak with Dr. Blair. Hello, caller in the 757 area code. Welcome to Illuminations. Did you have a question or comment for Dr. Blair? Hello, caller. Are you listening, or are you wanting to make a comment in the 757 area code? I was hearing something there for a second.
Yeah, I do too. Just listening.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll just put you back on mute, so if you want to make a comment, just press 1, and then we'll be notified. So I guess they're just listening for right now. Well, Dr. Blair, you spoke about, the mental, the physical, the spiritual component. Let's get to that physical. We know that, as long as we have a body, we're definitely going to be a bit vulnerable, on the physical level. And so when we think about all the things that are taking place that are, in attack to the physical, I have a few questions myself about people who were born between 1945 and 1955. There's a call out there for them to get tested for hepatitis C. Can you give us a little insight into what that can be all about?
Yeah, that's very interesting, too, because hepatitis C is what they give newborn babies in the main. And I've often asked, what in the world backs up or causes that to be thought that a newborn baby should have hepatitis C? Hepatitis C is for homosexuals, heterosexuals, people who are promiscuous, people who are having sex. So that means when the baby is coming out of the birth canal that he or she is going to have sex, and it can't protect you against something that you don't have, but it can introduce the strain of that virus into the child at the womb. And this is ridiculous.
Right.
So now if this is the case, then why would you give this as a shot to a child? I say most of these things that we will find up now. I saw a tape. Oh, I never forget that tape. I've played so many tapes, I don't know when, but I never forget one called Psychiatry, the Industry of Death. There's 3 tapes I think people should get, and that's one. And when I looked at what these so-called psychiatrists and psychologists are doing, when I looked at the pharmaceutical industry that plays tag with them, and the tag is you out, not them, then I said to myself, what in the world is this thing all about? So I simply think now that the things we're getting in some of these vaccines, and they have what is called a vaccine court. People can actually go to court and get money for the problems that have arisen from taking vaccines. And when I think of now, the Merck's index is supposed to be 6,000 pharmaceutical drugs, and in the United States Dispensary of Pharmaceutical Medicine, the same kind of thing, over 7,000. That means that we have 7,000 potential choices of taking a drug, and none of which can do us any good. Let me tell you why I say that. Because when you have a drug, especially one that is pharmaceutical, it means it is made from chemicals. It means it is synthetic. And if you have melanin, and if you have an active pineal pituitary system, you're supposed to have hormones secreted from glands. When you start doing that, it's because the gland has not secreted it enough, or won't once you start taking the pharmaceutical, or either it has been misdiagnosed or something you did caused it not to act correctly. To substitute something, it means possibly for a while. But to replace something means now you're going from wonderful conditioning to synthetic medicine, and when the synthetic things won't go, you're going to die or get sick. So this is why I'm saying again, this whole science that we're using now is predicated on understanding the cause of something, but then is elucidated by then replacing that something with a chemical. I don't think we're chemicals. I don't think we're made to make chemicals. I think we're made to make hormones and things that can make chemicals only if they're doing from a valid point of view. So when you start talking about inoculations, vaccinations, you start talking about all of these kind of things, and some of the drugs they take are oral, but most of them are not. They're usually injected in the skin or so. Then I say, I think this whole science is wrong. And if it's the case with that, if it wasn't wrong, then why, with all the people that have taken these shots and things, is the disease still around? Why is it next year in September they start the same thing all around, take some more shots, and never eliminate anything? So again, I think it's one for what you believe in. I don't believe in it myself. Hope I never have to take it, and if I do, it'll be because I'm kicking and screaming and have no choice.
That's right. Very so. Yeah. And then, there's all the issues, of course, with the genetically modified foods. Now, certainly on the physical, we do have to take in nourishment. We need an energy source. And so this corporation, the Monsanto, transforming everything. Please touch on that. The toxins in rice now. Of course, we already know about the corn.
Well, the whole point is now that Monsanto, Alcatel is not too far behind. We just don't hear about it. But Monsanto reigns supreme on the chemical table. And Monsanto wants to patent everything that you can think of so that therefore can control it. Whole Foods used to be a store that most people that are into the health area know about. When it first started, maybe 15, 20 years ago, everybody was going to Whole Foods because finally they didn't have to run all around the city to get things that were wholesome for their bodies. They went to Whole Foods, and Whole Foods would be things that we're talking about now that are good for you, that are natural. Now they have things in Whole Foods that are Terminator seeds, and that's another
my goodness.
That came up again because they said we cannot have seeds that come up yearly and annually. This is what the farmers preyed on. This is what you had your victory gardens for, or your home gardens. You plant a seed, and each year it comes up. Now they banned Whole Foods. They banned it now for Terminator seeds. So when you can get cucumbers, cantaloupes, watermelons without seeds, that means you got a hybrid. That means you got a chemical thing, and the less seeds it had, it means it doesn't have the things to reproduce itself, which is what, when it got into your body, would help you to reproduce, and that's where the energy and food and substance came from. So now everything is being curbed. So then when I find out that Monsanto now is a controlling interest in Whole Foods, I like to flip it over backwards, and I don't do
no, Dr. Blair.
So now
really?
You got on there, you better read labels closely. They even tell you, we don't know what you got it up there, you choose for yourself. So now you've got everything mixed in with everything else, some of which may be good, but most of which, if it's from Monsanto, is going to be bad, simply because if it's from Monsanto, it's synthetic and chemicalized, and I already said I believe in natural hormones, I don't believe in chemicals. So there we got another.
Right, and here we are. If in pollination something cannot reproduce, well then it's going to die out.
And
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, in nature, that is, that's it. The word speaks it. Terminator.
And do you know that your Congress has passed in some of these thousands of pages of laws that we don't even understand, and half the senators and congressional and Congress people haven't even read them because there's too much to read. They have in there buried that if they do want to, and you're growing a garden in your yard, and you're not using Terminator seed, you can be fined. Do you know?
In your own personal yard.
If you then serve what you grew in your yard to your guests, they can go to jail. Now, do you realize what that must mean? The ascendancy of some of these people we elect, I think we select them more than elect them, to even pass such a law? Why would anybody even dream of such a law? Now you're talking about dracons. Now you're talking about getting the weakness out of the people and making the weakest people the weakest. Now you see what we're up against. This is why I say this goes far beyond what we normally see. This goes beyond the things that our planet is going through. It's going because our planet is trying to raise vibrations, because these Dracons, and now I got to go there, are going to be kicked off, and they will do anything in their power to stay here and to stay keeping everybody else as weak as they can or control of the planet. This is where our problem lies.
Mm-hmm. So that's why this information is so vital. So we definitely have to avoid, being a part of the weaker, whether it's physically, mentally, or spiritually.
Well, I hope to, and I think anybody that's thinking would not want to be on the bottom of anything unless it was something good on the bottom of it. Definitely not the stuff that shorten their lives, make them look older, and take away that's another thing, and take away their sex drive. I find when I talk about that, sometimes I get more attention than what they're going to do with their brains. Some people think more of their sex gland than they do their brains. So I'm saying this. Also, these things, do you know that the prostate trouble in men is growing? You have men between the age of 17 and 32. That's prime time. That's prime time for every part of their body. That now the prostate has enlarged. The urethra it's just ridiculous. You have women now with all kind of cysts and tumors on the uterus and stuff like this. Half of this is caused again by eating these kind of foods and being subjected to radiation. But do they tell you this? No. They tell you to go get some more radiation, go get some more of this food, and take some more of the drugs. Then it gets worse.
Right, food and drug. That's the conflict of interest, is it not?
I'm telling you, some people call it food, I call it throwaway. And you better be careful where you throw away some, because some of these things they throw away are in what they call Roundup and Gaucho, and that started another problem. They put Roundup and Gaucho into the yard so the grass would grow and the weeds would not. Do you know most weeds are the things that you used to eat? Do you know most weeds are the things that you need? You see what I'm saying? Yeah, I have one part of the garden. This is why they used to have out in the forest and all the wild things. Then they want me to manicure a yard for grass, but you still didn't get rid of all of them because that's where your natural things are, in the dandelion, in the sunflower, in things like this. So what they did, the Roundup and Gaucho got in there. The Roundup and Gaucho began to poison these particular things. Then it got it worse because the bees came along, and of course the reason, it used to say when the bee population dies, count 6 and you're dead too, because they cross-pollinate. That's the way the farms and stuff were going by bees. Then the bees began to disappear. Now they got stuff called colony collapse. Now they got parasites that are in the bees, and they're calling bees zombie bees. Now, why did I bring that up? Because it's all part of the same cycle. How can you get good foods at any food store if the very substance and the very creatures that help to bring that food are now being zombified, and the soil being depleted, and the seeds themselves having no germs in them, no wheat germ in it, taken all out again? So I'm just simply saying, and that's another thing now. They got a whole thing now called zombie bees and colony collapse. I don't know if you want to go there, but we can go there too.
Oh, we can definitely go there.
Well, they've got a thing called colony collapse. Colony collapse with 3 different things. One, when bees leave their own hive, go out, and because something is now wrong with their flying mechanism, their sonar, their radar, they now come back to the wrong beehive. You don't do that because the queen is there. And the last thing you want to do is go to the wrong guy's queen. Okay? So now you got a big problem with the bees fighting themselves. In addition to which, they have another thing. They have a parasite that they have discovered now is infested in bees, especially honeybees. It even gets into wasps and things like that, but let's just stay with the bee population again. They found out that this parasite actually is supplied by a fly. And this fly, much like the tsetse fly used to affect people, it seems to affect these bees. It actually lays its eggs in a venom into this into this bee. It then gets from there to the thorax of the bee, per se, begins to grow in there, and actually eats the bee alive. So now when the bee is going through this thrombosis, that's when it starts going around in circles, walking around on the ground, because it's in pain and dying. It can't even find the hive. It can't find itself. So that's another thing. Before they started all this Roundup and Gaucho, before they started, here we go again, chemtrails, before they started all of these things dumping into the oceans and the waters and along the beaches, things that made anything good die and things evil come on, you didn't have this. So now organic farmers who are having to, here's another thing too. Adding to that is the fact that the government now is not supporting many of the farmers. or paying farmers not to grow. So once they started doing that, the farmers didn't have to worry about growing crops. They could let their land be used for anything because the government was going to pay them. Suddenly now the government doesn't pay them anymore. So the beekeepers go back to trying to let the bees grow. So what do? They feed the bees corn syrup, genetically modified, and many non-organic bee farmers had to use it in a time too. But what happened was now, once these bees start getting the corn syrup, instead of giving back a little bit of the honey they made for themselves and the queen, they begin genetic pesticides. This is when they now begin to get diseases themselves. The organic farmer, of course, would give them back some of the honey, not take it all, so that because they're taking the bees' food for the queen and themselves. As I say, this thing gets so messed up that any way you look at it, as we begin to understand what's happening, our planet is coming down to a crisis. It has gotten so far-fetched from what I think the Creator's original universal Creator's prayer was and plot was, that now we have a mess. And until this mess is straightened up, I think we're going to see what we're getting. The wars and rumors of wars, the strange storms, tornadoes, sages, tycoons, everything else again, because we're in a tight state now of having to change to get rid of the bad to go to the good. And it's quite a process, and I think we're all suffering from it. Some of us are awakening to it, but at least you can begin to understand why this is happening.
Certainly, that everything is way off. Now speaking about that physical part as well, what's happening with the planet, the heat waves that are taking place, the wildfires here on my end in Seattle, that's been unheard of. I remember, of course, there were always fires in California and Los Angeles, San Fernando Valley, and in that area because of the heat and because of the dry weather. But here in Seattle, where it's so much moisture, it's amazing.
Well, I tell you, I did a tape roughly about 2002 or 3, and all it was is to show a whole bit of our planet and show how much fire is coming down from the sky. And I'll guess there must have been over 900, almost 1,000 fires someplace on this planet, and that continued for 2 years. So where is all this coming from? Where is all these meteor fallouts or whatever is causing it being originated from? What in the world is going on with our planet? And as we find out now, much of the meteorite belt around our Earth and what they now call the asteroid belt that surrounds it is bringing some of these fires. Some of these are things actually coming from space to our Earth. Some of these, I think, are fallouts, hear this well, from the chemtrails and the things that are in them, titanium, barium, aluminum, strontium-90, and now with the Fukushima Daiichi plants, strontium and plutonium. All of these things now are not natural. And when the sun rays hit them, that also can begin to start fires. So I'm saying again, once you begin to act as a God, but don't have a God-like consciousness, and you begin to try to make things better than the universal Creator has made them, and those things now are to control creatures and people on a planet that you think you've subdued, quote-unquote Dracons, and Illuminati that serve them, now you got a problem. Now that the planet is saying, I'm awake now, the Creator doesn't want me to have this, I'm going to get rid of you, now you got a real battle. And that's the truth now. The planet is actually trying to get rid of this scum, and the planet is actually trying to save those that can wake up, if we can wake up, and that is what we see the battle before us, in the form of fires, floods, rain, snow, hurricanes, tornadoes, sages, droughts, you name it, we got it. That's why.
It certainly makes so much sense. It sounds like, here, Mother Gaia, is a being, a living being, and here we are, we're little cells on it. And what does a body do when there is an infection?
It's rid of it.
It heats things up.
There you go. And interesting, too, when you said Lady Gaia, because those in the know, of course, and I'm sure your audience, therefore, is in the know, is another word for our planet Earth. So to show you how things have gotten, now they have Lady Gaga, that the realm of people who make money off of, I won't say that, I'll say who like to make money off of ignorance and things that have denigrated again. Now you got Lady Gagas that take off on that. And, of course, you've got many Little Wayne, and then you've got so many things going on here now. Everything to bring down the planet, even down to the music we listen to and the younger people listen to. And the babies have to go up around. Imitating women, again, and I'm not funny. I like women and I like sex and all this stuff, but showing you the worst kind of sex, showing you the lowest kind of cursing, showing you the worst kind of things like this, and even getting down to making a parody out of Lady Gaga by calling her Lady Gaga.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not a joke. It is something that needs to be taken seriously. Well, we talked about what's happening on the planet, with the food that we're eating, certainly the weather patterns. We talked about the sun, the flares. How about what is happening with off-planet? There's a lot of talk about Mars now, a lot of interesting stuff going on about Mars. But you, as a metaphysician, you're aware that there have always been colonies on Mars and inside of Mars. Can you go into that?
Yes, I can. And also there was a call that came here, as the secretary was still here too, and she said also that somebody had asked, I don't know why they didn't ask you there, but they called here. I guess they didn't know how to get to you. I don't know. But they asked, I'd given the code name for the astronomical, that flare that's coming from the sun, and it says some people might think more of it if you can actually say that the meteorologists have known about it. And it's called AR 1575. AR 1575. And that's one of the biggest flares that has ever been released is coming this way. Now, getting back to the Martian thing, Mars, of course, has been one of the planets that has always been, when you get back to the Martians are coming and always been feared, and all the movies that are made about invasion of the Martians. And
that's right. It's always been about the Martians.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they re-released this movie recently, too, now. I forget what it was, but it's about the Martian invasion here. And it was made very well with color nowadays. Very frightening because all they did was kill and take your insides out and eat you up. So, right. Again, well, when you look at metaphysics has never said that Mars was a god of war. I don't know who dreamed that up. That's not what was taught in metaphysics. This is something that came up because of maybe these movies and things that were made. It's not the god of war. Mars, in fact, has been a home to many people or creatures that resemble some Negroid people here on this planet. Hint, hint. And when you start talking about Olmecs, metaphysics teaches that the Olmecs were a Negroid-looking people.
Right.
And that they were everywhere on Earth and were responsible for helping to save the Earth at one time from people who came from the moon. Now we're talking spatial talk. Let's see if we can get something that doesn't sound so way out to solidify or justify that statement. When we go to one of the most worshipped, misunderstood, but miraculous structures on Earth, the Great Pyramids at Giza, we have there Martians having built them. Now, how can I make such a false claim? What in the world is wrong with this man? Nothing, except that I do some studies and I'm not afraid to look at blackness and Negroidness and try to change it because I see it. In fact, I go to look at it even more. And when you look at that whole thing around there, you find out that when the Greeks came there, they could not pronounce CH. I mean, they had K, they used CH. So what they now call Cairo actually was Kahir. Kahir, if you look it up, means Mars. And if you look at the settlements that are there, they found the same thing duplicated on Mars, and they found the same thing duplicated on Alpha Centauri, on the planet Sirius, but they don't tell you about these things. So what I'm saying is, in guessing here...
Well, Dr. Blair, just go back to that. I missed. What is it that they've seen duplicated?
They've seen duplicated the pyramid structure, the so-called the three big structures and the two lesser pyramids there. They call it the unknown pyramid, Micronitis, Khufu, and all that stuff. That's just what they call it. They don't know what they're talking about. They make up things to fit the need. They don't go back into the historical texts of the people who were there and the writings, what they called it. So that seemingly was built as a transportation device and as a weapon. If wasn't used for that, that's when the pyramid had a top to it and a crystal in it. They called it the Eye of Horus. It had gold on it. It had up the Grand Galloway, a lot of crystals in there by which they could pull energy from inside the earth and then rebroadcast it. A lot is up there. That is a magnificent structure. not at all built as a tomb or a pyramid with a king's chamber and queen's chamber, but as a device which could either transport you or could send out rays and be used as a weapon. Now, that part you don't hear about. Why? Because now they have to stretch their minds. Nobody wants to step out on a limb because they don't get funding, they don't get sabbaticals, they don't get paid vacations and going out to study, so they don't touch it. So they go on with the tales that are told, continue to tell the lies as though telling a lie is going to ever find the truth. That's one of the truths about the Great Pyramids.
And so these were set by a people, and apparently these people have made their travels around the solar system.
And there's discovering pyramids right here on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they have what they call the mound builders, and they go all the way out to the Atlantic Ocean, come all the way down into southern Illinois down here near the Mississippi and St. Louis River, all this kind of thing there. Those are all mounds. They were pyramids, and they were covered over. They even had the snake mounds, they call it, because they snake all the way through Ohio, Pennsylvania, everything, till they get here again. We have mounds now in Africa that they're just rediscovering, Miro and places like that. There are mounds down in Tiwanaku, Uxmal, Chichen Itza down in South America. There are mounds on islands. Who ever heard of such? Pyramids on islands. We don't understand a daggone thing. We get miseducated and we continue with the miseducation. This is a time for the awakening. That's why people are getting illuminated. That's why people are revolting, because the time clock that wound us backwards is gone. They're now supposed to wake up, and you can't wake up if you're eating zombie bees, eating zombie produce, eating genetically modified food, and taking shots. That's why they give them to you, so you won't wake up.
Right, right. Well, speaking of waking up, Dr. Blair, Israel and the Arab Spring, what can you speak to about that area?
Oh, wow. Well,
oh, Dr. Blair, you know me.
Well, hey, you know, I hope people are listening to this. Nobody's called in yet, or at least we haven't recognized them. So I know I get.
Well, I think they're just listening because they don't have any questions. They're just listening.
Well, okay. Well, what do we got now? We got a new nominal. You know, phenomena is one, but this is a new nominal. It's past phenomena. You've got over there the state of Israel, supposed to be a very humble nation who was kicked out of many places, who had refugees and were messed over in World War II. And instead of being nice and kind now because of it, they say that they must now fight for their Holy Land. Well, I'm not going to get into that. Let them fight for whatever they want to. But fighting means you must keep it from somebody else, and why is a fight ensuing? Now we go into a broader thing. So now they state that they want to get rid of Iran because Iran is an atomic threat. Well, Israel is an atomic threat too, but nobody says anything about that. So again, if you're going to use it, you use it, but you don't want them to have parity. I can understand that if you're the big bully on the block. But now the big bully on the block is only a bully as long as the United States backs him up. Now we got another problem. Iran said, okay, you have your big bully. Can I get a witness somewhere? Can I get somebody to back me up? I have oil. I have money. I have intelligent citizenry. So Russia said, hey, we're listening. We can make money with you. We don't need the dollar. We can use a ruble, or we can use whatever we want to use. Then China said, well, we're doing business with the United States, but we can do business with you. So now what have you got? You've got Syria, Russia, and China all saying that they will back Iran. They're already sending advanced missiles. They're already sending advanced missiles. I mean, they can get over here with the missiles now. And now we're going to dare back up a fight. We're going to start a war in somebody else's land with Russia. We're going to start a war with China. And China already has bought half the United States. We're in a dangerous position, and I don't want to say more than that because it gets me angry, and people have to understand. This planet is up for sale. They're about to start something that will never be finished until we get intervention, and if we want the Dracons to intervene, they're the ones behind it. If we want the Creator to intervene, we're going to raise our consciousness, stop fighting these wars, wake up as to what we are, and ask for some help. And I think that's what we better do before we start getting into something that's going to benefit none of us. The banking systems are behind it. The banks already are taking your... Don't start me.
Well, you know, I think we need to save some juice, Dr. Blair, because you have a teleconference that's tomorrow. And I'd just love for you to share little tidbits about that so that people can show up and partake of that spiritual food there.
Well, I thank you that. Let me give my website out, too, for those who want to go and sign up. It's www.themetacenter2.com. That's www.themetacenter2.com. the Metacenter, TheMetacenter, you push the number 2.com. If you sign up there, you have a big picture there, a schematic of the Earth that would be shaved in half and looking like what metaphysics says the Earth could be looking like. It shows you 3 different areas. The one tomorrow would be Middle Earth. And we'll be looking at the creatures that are there. We'll be looking at the technology that is there. We'll be looking at the water that is there, and that's what I said. We'll be looking at the cave world there. We'll be looking at the high-tech tunnels and things that are being bridged and used. We'll be looking at a whole different way of a possibility about our Earth that has always been rumored about, but very few people talk about. We talked about Admiral Byrd, Admiral Perry, and the things that happened before. We talked about the Hitler invasion there. We talked about the icebergs that are there and so. So tomorrow we're going to be talking about everything right under your surface in the world of the caves, the world of the tunnels. I think you'll find it fascinating. I think we'll have enough proof to show you that it's at least worth considering that consciousness, and this is what you usually don't talk about. So if you go to my website, you can't miss it because there's a big picture of an Earth cut in half showing what metaphysics has to say, or at least what I think is a metaphysical understanding of Earth. And if you right by that, there'll be a button you push. You pay a whole big $10. That's all it's going to cost you. And you can join us tomorrow. And if those who then leave their phone number and leave their email number, they'll be contacted probably within 24 hours, definitely before it starts, with a few hours to spare. So if you're just hearing about it now, please go up there. Do us both a favor. See what's got to be said about it. See what you think about it. But don't go away ignorant or dumb if you think, again, I don't want to know this. If it's childlike, at least hear the childlikeness explained. And if it's not childlike, and you've often wondered about that, hear a philosophical view and join in and state what you think about it and state what you know. That's one of the privileges of having a telecom. So if you go up there tonight, you can sign up tonight. Leave your email, leave your phone. We'll contact you and tell you how you can be part of our journey tomorrow.
Great. Well, I would say that $10 is a very nominal fee for that information. So I just invite everyone to head right on over there and participate in that. And, just sit and get that spiritual food, get that awakening so that we can all move forward. We definitely want to raise our consciousness so we can make the best choices possible, because we do have free will pretty much.
So. We had free will. If you get the drugs in you won't.
Right.
They're putting chips in people, everything else. Many of these things that have happened, where these mass murders and things, look at some of the things they're saying behind the scene. These people don't even remember what they did. They don't even know that they did. Why do you think that is? That's mind control. The easiest way to get mind control is through a drug. Definitely through a shot or a vaccine, or worse than that, through a chip. This is another one of the things that's happening on our planet that we have to wake up for. Every one of our assassinations has come about as though there was somebody else that did it, and yet somebody else is the fall guy. Who's the fall guy? The encrypted individual, the mind-controlled individual, the poor lost soul who became the corrupt tool of a corrupt society, especially with the scientists who use that person, use them up to their death.
Right, and so, a lot of these people have put themselves into that position, like you said, with drug use.
Well, there you go.
What does happen? I mean, if we really think about it, Dr. Blair, with an individual, if you have yourself, you've given yourself away to drugs, what's happening spiritually, mentally, and we all have seen evidence of what happens physically, but what happens on that soul level that opens somebody up to being used and taken as a I don't know, some sort of mind controlled slave?
What happens? You start losing your soul. And this is what has happened with the Dracons. They lost their soul a long time ago. That's why they're now draconic and must do everything with nanotechnology and things that are built of metal and stuff, because their biological functions are gone. This is what happens when a person degenerates. When the organs go, when the the natural processes of the body go, then you have to replace them with chemical things and with artificial things. And once you start doing that, you become the artificial, because you're no longer functioning on hormones, using the pineal gland, using the pituitary gland, using the glands for functioning for sex, the glands that function for reproduction, the glands you now become a parasite. You now become a robot. You now become somebody that's being slowly replaced because the organs and glands are being corrupted. This is what happens when you start on that path. This is what happens when you start becoming chemicals. Chemicals are one thing, hormones are another. Synthetics are one thing, natural things are another. Biologicals are one thing, nanotechnology is another. If you follow the way of the fallen gods and angels, then you will not follow the Creator's mind. This is why we are making choices here now. But the choice you make today almost immediately will be what happens to you tomorrow. And this is what's happening now. People are victims of their own folly, trusting the wrong people, listening to the wrong things, and not believing that inner mind. And that inner mind never leads you wrong. People say all the time, if I just follow my first mind. Learn to follow that first mind. Learn to do it. No, they tell you if you can't weigh it, you can't feel it, you can't see it, don't follow it because it's not real. The real things are always the unseen. The unseen always controls the seen. If something tells you in your mind you should do this, and you're sober, and not on so many drugs, and not already encrypted, listen to that first mind. How many times people say, "Ooh, your mind was 1,000,000 miles away." I said, "Sure was, girl. Sure was, boy. Sure was." That means that your mind can travel faster than light because they realize that the mind can be anywhere. But if your mind is not with you and you've lost it, now you become the zombie and the protozoic type, the protozoic zombie and protozoic, you might as well say, droid of these Dracons. That's the trouble.
And there's a lot in the media. We see films from AI, artificial intelligence. I think it was Macaulay Culkin or one of those young child actors years ago. We see all of the Star Trek. We see so many of these programs that really applaud and seem to play with our imaginations. Oh, the $6 Million Man, the Bionic Woman. That really push this idea of merging humanity with the cyber or the artificial.
And, of course, they're now even making super soldiers, and that's what the movies are showing, Captain America and
right.
All these things. They're showing you. In fact, I don't even want to go there. They're doing so many things now that are sacrilegious to consciousness, if religion can be spiritual, that if the Christians, the Jews, the Muslims, everybody else can't see this, why would you even want to follow this? None of those religions tell you to make a monster and make the monster lord over you. So I'm trying to figure out, even the people who are religious should be in arms about this stuff because it's corrupt. And it's showing you what can be when absolute corruption is completely corrupted, what can happen. And now they're replacing children with limbs and amphibious type things. They're taking paraplegics and doing this experiment with them. Well, that's great, but it's not great if you cause the disease and then have to replace it with an artificial. That means you didn't cause something an accident. You caused the accident. Wars are not accident. Wars are started, and people suffer and become war is hell. So now you got a perfect training ground for these artificial things, but now they've taken a league further. Now they're going to make super soldiers that have hind legs looking like grasshoppers, super soldiers that can leap over buildings or can have fire spitting from a firefighting apparatus built into their bodies. I mean, this is ludicrous now. It's past the ridiculous. I'm just saying, once you take science too far, science has taken you over. Scion means to know. Most of these people don't seem to understand what they know or how to use what the Creator's taught them.
Dr. Blair, the elections. What do you see there? You always mention selection. We all remember election where there was definitely a selection. But what are your findings?
I don't want to go into politics. I left politics. I study social science through the realm that I see through reading the newspapers and seeing the political parties operate. Believing it anymore, I lost belief. When you get a three-party system, there's hope. When you get a four-party system, there'll be a lot of hope. Right into now, I think it's just a matter of who you want and why you want it. I'm not telling people what to do in their politics. I know what I'm going to do, and I'll keep that to myself.
Well, we'll just leave that one alone then, Dr. Blair. But I'm just applauding you. You're helping to wake everyone up, and it looks like our callers are just listening, and they're just really taking it in. The way that you share this information, you say it in a way that gets people really thinking. Putting 1 and 2 and 3 together for themselves. You don't preach. You just share the information, and you give them just enough so that they can start to put things together in their minds. And that's a true teacher.
And I thank the universal creator for letting me to do that and flowing through me and letting me listen to higher consciousness and try to express it in truthfulness, not weighing my words to have to see if I can lie about it or not. Doesn't take long to tell a lie. Doesn't take long to tell the truth. It takes forever to get a lie because you have to remember the lie you told. So that's another reason I think when the Creator does speak to me or creative consciousness are allowed to come through me like all can, then we all can understand what I'm saying because that's getting into the facts. That's getting into what I would call truth and others would call fiction. It's easy to lie, but when you remember the lie, it's hard. It's always great to tell truth because you can live it. An example of what you look like shows you the truth you live. Look at some of these politicians. I wouldn't want to look like them.
Well, Dr. Blair, here we are. We're winding down to the end of the show. I just can't wait until our next time together. You've brought so many points in. There's just so many interesting things that we miss because our heads are down, working every day, as you hear me say, going to the plantation. And we're working today. Our heads are down. We're doing all the things that we must do to survive, if you will. And that's why it's so important to have somebody like you who's on the watch, looking out there, seeing what's going on so that we can bring our attention to it. Every time I talk to you, when we have our private conversations, you're bringing things to me that I had no idea were happening, even things that are right here in my own state and city. So,
I am a citizen of the planet Earth. Mm-hmm. I am a citizen of the inner world, extra world. I am a citizen of Earth, and therefore I don't try to limit myself to anything. It's the people working the plantations, hopefully, that will help me to survive and do and be their eyes and tell them facts that they can find and glean truth from. I hope that those working the plantation continue to purchase the tickets for tomorrow for the telecom, continue to buy the products, which we didn't go much into that, but that's not your fault, that's mine, because I get into a preaching thing and a teaching thing rather than trying to sell things because my heart is in that. The products came about because the people need them, and I know they need them even when they don't know they need them. So I think all of that is that hopefully those will spend the money with someone in their corner as well as they spend it with someone who's out of their corner. Buying stupid things that would disintegrate against them, eating foods that are already messed up. When I'm telling you by using a diode plaque or something, you can take the poisons out of food. We didn't even talk about that. Visit our website.
Certainly.
Tell again people to call in on the number again, and I'll give it again if it's okay, just before we sign off. Is that all right?
Please do. Please and do. You have a couple of minutes to talk about the diodes and to let people know how they can get a hold of them, and also, how to join you tomorrow for the teleconference.
Well, let's get the webpage out because all of this can be gotten and picked up even after when I'm off of your show, and that's www.themetacenter2.com. That's www.metacenter, short for Metaphysical Center, not Meti, METACENTER, push the number 2.com, and enter into a world of amazement. Tomorrow, if they sign up, it's only $10. You'll see this big schematic there of the earth carved in half. Sign up right next to it. It's $10, and then leave your phone number and your email. Somebody will either email you or so before starting time tomorrow, which is 3 o'clock Central Standard Time. Our phone number, 708-422-6685, 708-422-6685. And that solar flare is on its way. Let's hope again that that's not going to be the harbinger of this war starting, and maybe that flare is to tell these fools out there, don't start this war. There are creatures and a creator who is much more intelligent than you can take you out with one breath where you're being watched. If not, then I'll say, let's watch the times, but let's not be part of the times that is bad. Let's be some of the part of the times that is good for the soul, good for the mind, good for the body. And I sincerely thank you for having me on your show. I hope there were some listeners. I wouldn't know, but I hope also they'll contact me to let me know that because of you, they did know about what I'm doing tomorrow.
Oh, certainly they will. And there are lots of subscribers who actually listen to the show later on as well. And as you know, it is on the air in perpetuity, so that is forever. And so you will be being contacted, So I just thank everyone who joined us in the chat room, the callers that are hanging out listening. Thank you so much. Sometimes that silence is golden. Sometimes we need to just absorb and take things in without, asking questions, because all the questions were answered, whether you know it or not, Dr. Blair. As always, appreciate you, and I look forward to the next time we're together. And so I just invite everyone to go on over to partake of the wonderful information that's going to be given. Go to the Meta Center, sign up for that telecast. It's only $10, and support Dr. Blair in his efforts to support us. So, again, I thank you so much for joining us. Just remember, Illuminations, healthy food for the mind, body, and soul. And keep your head up. Keep your ears open. And sometimes it's wonderful to be quiet, because then you learn a lot.
This is Tamara Westwood, your host, signing off. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Please send all comments and ideas to Tamara@illuminationssoultherapy.com. Remember to join us live on Blog Talk Radio by logging into blogtalkradio.com/illuminations. And never miss a show by subscribing to the free podcast at iTunes Store. Search iTunes Podcasts for Illuminations, healthy food for the mind, body, and soul.